Hi everyone, it's lovely to see you. I'm Lorna and we are reading The Mystery of the Smuggler's Wreck by Helen Moss, and this is chapter 12, Family History. Kelly Mann smiled. Hi kids, I couldn't help overhearing. Emily gaped at her in dismay. How long had Kelly been standing there? How much had she heard? Did she know that her poison cake plot had been rumbled? Kelly strode across the room and sank down next to Jack on the sofa. Did you just say you're related to the Carter family of Prussia Cove? Emily exchanged glances of relief with Scott. With luck, that was the only part Kelly had heard. Jack nodded proudly, forgetting all about Kelly being their prime suspect. That's right. We're good old Cornish smugglers and proud of it. Scott had to gulp back a snort of laughter. Jack was actually trying to pull off a Cornish accent. He sounded like the world's first Cockney pirate. Hey, good on you, Kelly laughed. Me too. I've been tracing my family history for ages. I found out my roots go back to this bloke called George Mann. He worked for Thomas Pendragon and was the only survivor when the Mermaid sank. He was shipped off to Oz. What a story, eh? That's why I took this filming job with Joe Gordon. He's not paying me much, but it was a chance to come to Cornwall. I got in touch with the British TV company and pitched the idea of a documentary film to them, Cornwall's smuggling past, that kind of thing. I wanted to trace the descendants of the old smuggling families and see what they're doing now. The TV company is keen, but they want me to really big up the human interest angle. What do you mean? Scott asked. They want heaps of drama, like feuds still going on between families because someone's great-great-granny betrayed someone else's great-great-granddad to the customs men. I can't imagine anyone bearing a grudge from that far back, but I said I'd dig around and see what I could find. So, Emily asked slowly, you're just tracking people down to interview them? Kelly nodded. I got some great stuff today. That Mrs. Loveday didn't know much about Annie Cuttins, but she's a real mine of information. Sweet old lady. Kelly was clearly deluded if she thought Mrs. Loveday was sweet, Emily thought, but apart from that, her story rang true. She wasn't after revenge after all, just some exciting material for her documentary film. Emily had never felt so dumb. She knew she shouldn't have listened to Jack. Kelly slapped Jack in the back. So you've been doing some research too, eh? Can I see? Hey, could I interview you for my film? Jack grinned and handed Kelly his notes. Finding out he was a famous Cornish smuggler and being offered a starring role in a film wasn't bad for a day's work. Kelly began to study the family tree. Great stuff. You're a real pro at this. Jack squirmed with a tiny pang of guilt at taking all the credit for Mrs. White's work. But it was too late to come clean now. Scott glanced at one of the pages. That wasn't Jack's writing. It was far too neat for a start. You didn't do this, he snorted. Then he remembered his deal with the shark and hastily changed to an admiring tone. Wow, you didn't do this all afternoon, did you? That's awesome. Jack eyed his brother with suspicion. Why did Scott keep being nice to him? What was he after? But he didn't spend too much time wondering. Something had just occurred to him. If Kelly Mann had been innocently interviewing Mrs. Loveday and not trying to bump her off with toxic sprinkles, then that meant... He glanced down at Emily's bag on the floor next to her chair. Surely it would be a shame to let 6 perfectly good chocolate cakes go to waste, a crime even, and he was feeling a bit peckish. Those Nutella and salami sandwiches at lunchtime hadn't been very filling. Maybe he'd just have one little nibble. Quietly, he reached into the evidence bag and helped himself. Kelly had been studying Jack's notes for some time when she suddenly looked up and slapped her forehead. I've just remembered something I wanted to show you guys. She hurried up to her room and returned with her video camera. It looked small and fragile, stripped of its lights and waterproof housing, like a snail without its shell. Last night I was looking through all my footage of the wreck. I think I caught a shot of something inside the deck on that first dive, just before I got tangled up in that fishing line. She handed the camera to Scott. Excitement flickered under Scott's ribs. What sort of something? He peered at the small playback screen. Through the dark water, the camera lights had picked out smudges of white. Scott recognised them straight away. That's the skeleton I saw, he exclaimed. This must be before it fell down, along with that plank that trapped Emily's foot. It's still quite high up above the gap here. That's right, Kelly agreed. I didn't even notice it at the time. I was so busy trying to free myself. That's why the film was out of focus, and then I dropped the camera, of course. Scott was already pressing the button to play the film again. If the camera captured the skeleton, maybe it caught the compass too. He froze the frame where the skeleton came into view. He could just about make out a round blob in front of the skull. He zoomed in. Yes, that was it. The compass was dangling down past the skeleton's nose, just as he remembered it. Has Joe seen this? He asked. Not yet, Kelly said. He had to go up to Bristol yesterday for some meetings. He'll be back in a couple of days, but I can email him this image. Scott thanked her. Then perhaps he'll believe I really did see the Pendragon compass and I'm not some pathetic prankster. Kelly smiled. Yeah, Joe's a great bloke, really. I'm sorry he was so hard on you. It was just that he was stoked to think you'd found the compass. He was as mad as a cut snake when it disappeared. Suddenly, Scott had an idea. Can you output this onto your laptop? We should be able to enhance the image and get more detail. No worries, Kelly said, clearly impressed by Scott's technical know-how. While Kelly and Scott worked on the film, Emily took out her notebook. She was delighted that Scott had been proven right, of course, but it didn't solve the question of who had stolen the compass from the skeleton's neck and left the Scooby-Doo toy in its place. And how could they track down the smuggler's secret hoard without it? She discreetly crossed Kelly Mann off the suspect list. What about Mrs. White? She asked Jack. Did you find anything out? Jack recalled Mrs. White's response to his nitroseptic diving fever fib. Definitely innocent, he replied, except, due to the large quantity of chocolate cake in his mouth, it came out as Mefley Imfump. Emily's eyes followed the trail of cake crumbs down the front of Jack's t-shirt, across the sofa to the empty evidence bag in her satchel. Jack grinned sheepishly. Tasty bit of evidence, that. Look, Scott cried, beckoning them to the laptop screen. You can see it much better now. Emily and Jack leaned in to study the image. It was still blurry, but they could make out a roughly octagonal object. It was coated in a shell of sandy concretion, but a fragment of its casing had broken away at one edge to reveal faint lines engraved in the brass lid of the compass underneath. Emily snapped shut her notebook. Maybe they didn't need the compass to find the smuggler's hiding place after all. Perhaps the map was right in front of their eyes. Scott zoomed in to enlarge the image of the exposed section of the compass. Emily stared. Then she closed her eyes and groaned with disappointment. The lines she'd seen weren't part of a map at all. They wove in and out of each other in a complicated Celtic knot pattern. It was just a useless, decorative border. Jack was unimpressed too. All this fuss over a rusty old compass with stupid squiggly patterns round the edge. It probably doesn't even work anymore with that concrete gunk or whatever it's called all over it. Scott rolled his eyes. I don't think you'll be getting a job in the Antiques Roadshow anytime soon. First thing next morning, Emily went looking for old Bob to ask whether any unusual boats had been seen heading for Pirate Cove in the critical period between the first dive when Scott had seen Pendragon's compass round the skeleton's neck and the second one when Joe Gordon found that it had been replaced by a Scooby-Doo toy. She found the old fisherman turning Morwena's engine, and this time there were no jellyfish lurking in buckets of seawater. Old Bob was used to Emily's odd questions. He thought for a moment, rubbing a gnarly hand over his old woolen cap, but then he shook his head. No, I've not noticed anything out of the ordinary these last few days. Emily thanked him and walked away. Drift trotted along behind her, happily sniffing out the tiny crabs that scuttled under the heads of washed-up seaweed. Emily, on the other hand, couldn't help feeling dejected as she mooched along the pebbly beach. It seemed the Pendragon compass had vanished into thin air, or thin water to be precise. No boats had been seen going out to Pirate Cove, nobody had hired diving equipment from the Castle Quay cabin, and the suspect list was getting shorter by the minute. Mrs. White couldn't scuba dive, Kelly Mann was only interested in getting good stories for her documentary film, and Emily's phone call to the tour company had revealed that the entire group of American tourists had boarded a coach to London immediately after they'd returned from the wreck dive. If one of them had taken the compass, there wasn't much she could do about it. That left Joe Gordon. Could Joe have switched the compasses so he could search for the smuggler's hoard for himself? Emily wasn't convinced, but she'd have to interview him on his return from Bristol. It was starting to look like the only possible explanation. But just then she looked up to see a truck reversing down the ramp at the end of the harbour. It was towing a trailer with a small rowing boat on board. Emily suddenly had a brainwave. Old Bob hadn't seen any boats heading out to Pirate Cove, but there was one other way the compass dealer could have got to the wreck. Maybe Joe Gordon wasn't the only explanation after all. Emily pulled out her phone and called the boys. Meet me at the castle, she told them. We're going for a walk. Join me for chapter 13.